The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal.
As the Israel-Iran war expands, the president explores a potential off-ramp to more escalation, coinciding with possible U.S. involvement. Then,
I just seen a wall of water coming toward us. So we obviously evacuated the area and went down and started pulling other rescues.
Deadly deluge in a West Virginia county forcing a state of emergency. The search and rescue efforts happening right now. And then a new material is tested to help reduce the impact of head injuries. How a trip to the grocery store is the difference in the positive results. This is the National News Desk, America's News. Now, I'm Dee Gatton, and we begin tonight with a live look over Tel Aviv, Israel, where it is 1 a.m. Israel has activated its red alert in Tel Aviv, ordering residents to shelter in place. We have learned that Iran has launched its latest volley of ballistic missiles. An Iran Revolutionary Guard spokesperson said this operation will last until dawn. Through 4 nights of Iran's counteroffensive against Israel, at least 24 Israelis have died. Meantime, Israel is also continuing their operations inside Iran. Earlier today, the IDF struck Iran's state-run news agency in Tehran during a live broadcast. Israel's defense minister had said earlier, quote, the Iranian propaganda and incitement mouthpiece is on its way to disappearing. It comes just after Israeli troops warned residents of Iran's capital to evacuate because an attack was imminent. The Wall Street Journal says Iran is open to negotiating a ceasefire, as President Trump says they need to make a deal before it's too late.
It's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
Israel has indicated their operations in Iran could take weeks. The question now is, do they continue to go at it alone, or will the United States get directly involved in the war against Iran? National correspondent Kayla Gaskins joins us with more from Washington.
The fight between Israel and Iran lighting up the Middle East. The world waiting to see if the U.S. will remain on the sidelines. On Sunday, President Trump telling ABC News it's possible we could get involved, but we are not involved at this moment. Israel continues systematically taking out Iran's top nuclear scientists and officials.
I can inform you, Brett, that moments ago, we also got the chief intelligence officer and his deputy in Tehran.
But U.S. officials saying President Trump made it clear to Israel he's against an assassination of Iran's Ayatollah. Israel's President Benjamin Netanyahu dancing around the question Sunday.
Is that true?
Actually, there's so many false reports of conversations that never happened, and I'm not going to get into that.
Trump aiming to prevent the war from escalating further in hopes diplomatic talks can resume.
I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens, but sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Netanyahu telling Fox News their intelligence shows Iran was behind the 2 assassination attempts on President Trump last summer.
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes. They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number 1.
Iran's president had promised to take revenge against President Trump for his authorization of the strike that killed top Iranian general Qasem Soleimani during his first term. In 2022, Iran released an animated video of a targeted attack on Trump. Meanwhile, for Israel to achieve its ultimate goal of destroying Iran's nuclear facilities, it will either need incredible ingenuity or, many believe, help from the United States. The main nuclear site, Fordow, is nestled deep inside a mountain. Israel doesn't have a bomb powerful enough to reach the site, but Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Michael Leiter, says they have other ways.
Not everything is a matter of, taking to the skies and bombing from afar.
But you're certain you can wipe out Fordow?
We're certain that we can set back the nuclear weapons system development within Iran for a very, very long time.
The United States does have bombs called bunker busters, powerful enough to destroy the site and the planes to drop them, all currently sitting within flying distance of Iran. All it would take is a green light from President Trump. I'm Kayla Gaskins, reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Meanwhile, there may be a radiological and chemical contamination in Iran's main nuclear facility in Natanz that has been struck by Israel's Air Force. The United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency says these strikes so far have not resulted in changing radiation levels, but the Natanz facility has a gas which can burn skin and be deadly if inhaled. A trade deal between the U.S. and U.K. is now finalized. The two countries' leaders signing a document today at the Group of Seven Nations Summit in Canada. This agreement will cut tariffs on goods from both nations, but does not include steel tariffs. Those are still being negotiated. President Trump is still working on a deal with Canada.
I think we have different concepts. I have a tariff concept. Mark has a different concept, which is something that some people like. But we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it today. I'm a tariff person. I think Mark has a more complex idea, but also very good. So we're going to look at both, and we're going to see what we're going to come out with something, hopefully.
At the G7 summit, leaders of the world's wealthiest countries are meeting to talk about global security, economic stability, and technology. And we are also learning new details about how Vance Luther Bolter allegedly carried out what authorities are saying was a politically motivated attack in Minnesota that left a state lawmaker and her husband dead. Another lawmaker and his wife were shot, and they are recovering. Federal officials now reveal Bolter allegedly stopped at the homes of two additional lawmakers. National correspondent Atra Al-Nashar reports.
Vance Luther Bolter making his first appearance in federal court Monday, less than 24 hours after his capture ended the largest manhunt in Minnesota history. Suspected of carrying out what authorities call a politically motivated murderous rampage.
Bolter stalked his victims like prey.
Federal investigators say Bolter first went to State Senator John Hoffman's home in the Minneapolis suburb of Champlin, pretending to be a police officer. He allegedly shot Hoffman and his wife repeatedly. Both are expected to survive. Then, officials allege at 2:24 a.m. Saturday, Bolter arrived at the home of another state rep in nearby Maple Grove.
Unfortunately, the state representative was not home. She and her family were gone on vacation.
Bolter then allegedly drove in his car, made to look like a police vehicle, toward the home of another state senator in New Hope. But local police, having heard about the shooting at the Hoffmans, beat him there to do a wellness check.
Bolter then traveled to Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and the home of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman.
Authorities say Brooklyn Park police arrived shortly after Bolter.
When Bolter saw the officers get out of the car, he drew his weapon and began firing. He rushed into the house through the front door, firing into it. And when he entered, he murdered Representative Hortman and her husband, Mark.
Bolter's federal charges, expected to be prosecuted first, include murder, firearms offenses, and stalking.
Will we see the death penalty? It's too early to tell. That is one of the options for several other charges, though.
On Saturday, local authorities filed second-degree murder and attempted murder charges against Bolter, allowing them to get a nationwide arrest warrant.
These are the highest charges we can file by complaint, and it needed to be done quickly to get the warrant out. Mr. Bolter was taken into state custody, and our office intends to pursue first-degree murder charges against Mr. Bolter.
Now that Bolter is in custody, law enforcement says they can start the hard work of putting together a motive and determining whether the suspected assassin is part of a broader network. In Washington, I'm Atra Al-Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
We now know who was killed in a shooting at a festival in Utah last night. Authorities have identified the victims, including a 41-year-old, 18-year-old, and an 8-month-old. Police said a 16-year-old male suspect is in custody. 5 people were shot at Centennial Park following an argument between two groups.
Westfest is something that is a celebration of our community, a celebration of all of the things that make our community great. It's heartbreaking, I think, for all of us to see something like this happen at something that is, just a real treasure, something that we really enjoy in our community.
The investigation here is ongoing. Meantime, two Manhattan court security guards, we are learning right here live. Look over New York City, where they have been hospitalized after being stabbed while screening people to enter the courthouse. One of the two suffered lacerations to the face. Another was cut across the throat. Both are in stable condition. The assailant has been taken into custody. A court spokesperson says he believes this was a targeted attack, but no further details are available at this time. The temporary restraining order on President Trump's plan to block international students from going to Harvard has been extended until at least next Monday. The federal judge says she needed more time to prepare a full ruling. Her previous deadline was set to expire this Thursday. For now, the State Department is still accepting visas for foreign nationals who want to study at the university. A three-judge panel began hearing arguments today over North Carolina's congressional maps that have been accused of being racially gerrymandered. The legislative maps enacted in 2023 that were drawn by Republicans helped keep the General Assembly as well as flip 3 House seats of the representatives. If the plaintiffs win their lawsuit, the maps could be redrawn and could give Democrats an advantage in the upcoming 2026 election. The sixth and possibly the final week of the prosecution's case against Sean Diddy Combs began today, and it is estimated that about 5 witnesses are left to testify before the state rests their case. Before testimony began this morning, juror number 6, a 41-year-old black male, was formally dismissed for allegedly giving false information about where he lived. One of the alternates, a 57-year-old Caucasian male, is now officially on the jury panel. Coming up next here, the state's at highest risk for tornadoes, large hail, and flooding tonight. We are also tracking changes to President Trump's immigration enforcement stance and the cities he wants to crack down on harder. Later, the encounter with backyard hemlock that almost cost an Ohio man his life. We'll be right back. As we come back on the air right now, over 18 million Americans, they are at risk for severe thunderstorms, damaging wind, very large hail, and a few tornadoes. They are all possible today in the northern and central plains and upper Mississippi Valley. Minneapolis and several other cities in Minnesota are at the highest risk tonight. 10 million people under flood watches in Missouri and a few other states further east. Now, this all comes as 3 people are still missing, and the death toll is now up to 6 people after devastating flash flooding in West Virginia over the weekend. Search and rescue efforts are ongoing, and communities in Ohio County are cleaning up the damage. Up to 4 inches of rain fell in less than half an hour on Saturday. Multiple houses and cars were destroyed.
We just watched the radar, and the radar just changed, and then over Ohio County it just opened up, and we just had torrential rains coming down. They performed 15 swiftwater rescues during the night, and also our volunteers responded to 77 rescue calls.
Four escaped migrant detainees remain on the loose in or around Newark, New Jersey. They became unaccounted for after a riot broke out on Thursday at an ICE detention center. Now, while the riot, consisting of roughly 50 inmates, was going on inside the facility, and look at this right here, the center was also dealing with an anti-ICE protest outside the facility, and that is video right here. Investigators now looking into how protesters outside may have coordinated with detainees. Multiple arrests from the protests have been reported. Protests against ICE continue around the country, while President Trump is calling for more immigration crackdowns in Democrat-run cities, as more Republicans are calling for a more criminal-focused approach in who ICE is targeting. National correspondent Matt Gelka reports from Washington.
A weekend filled with protests against the Trump administration's immigration policies gave way to the president calling for an ICE crackdown on Democratic-run cities, singling out Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York as Democratic power centers where millions upon millions of illegal aliens reside.
Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
The Trump administration has pushed for ICE to make 3,000 arrests a day to carry out their mass deportation operation. But the president's order comes as he's also softened his stance on ICE raiding farms, restaurants, hotels, and meatpacking plants. Industries worried about losing labor and having their businesses wiped out.
I don't know exactly what triggered that decision. I'll take it. Is it a step in the right direction? It's at least a baby step. Let's hope there's more to follow.
A group of Hispanic Republicans in Congress, led by Texas Republican Tony Gonzalez, sent a letter to ICE last week asking them to focus on deporting violent offenders. A CNN report citing internal data showed that less than 10% of the nearly 185,000 immigrants booked into ICE custody since October have been convicted of serious crimes, including murder, rape, assault, or robbery. More Republicans have been vocal about going after criminals instead of workers, putting pressure on the overall deportation campaign.
What if you don't get citizenship, but you get to work and you don't have to worry and fear deportation? I think actually many people who are here now who are working would probably accept the trade-off.
The White House is also reportedly debating a significant expansion of its U.S. travel ban, potentially adding 36 more countries. Countries could get off that list if they're willing to accept deportations of migrants who aren't originally from there.
And Matt, immigration has been a strong issue for the president. Typically polls well for him. Is that still the case?
Well, recent polling from YouGov indicates that it may not be as strong as it was. Now, Americans overwhelmingly support deporting violent criminals at almost 90% in this latest poll. But there's been a noticeable shift in the approval of the president's immigration policies overall. He had a plus 13 approval rating on the issue in March, but that same poll from last week showed the approval at just plus 4.
We'll be watching if the shift in immigration response impacts these polls. Matt Gelka reporting tonight from the Capitol. Thank you. The Trump family is starting a mobile phone company. Eric Trump says Trump Mobile will sell phones built here in the U.S. It's complete with a new phone service, T1 Mobile, which will cost $47.45 a month. It will also include a gold phone for $499. It's the latest in a string of ventures that raises ethical concerns among some critics. Home goods chain At Home is filing for bankruptcy. It's part of a restructuring agreement to eliminate nearly $2 billion in debt. The CEO says it will improve the company's ability to compete in a rapidly evolving trade environment and with tariffs. At Home says it will continue to serve customers both in store and online. There are over 200 U.S. locations. Billions of dollars could soon go to communities impacted by the opioid crisis. Attorneys general of every state, D.C., and 4 territories agreed to a $7.4 billion settlement with Purdue Pharma and its owners. Purdue would no longer be owned by the Sackler family, accused of creating and heavily marketing opioids for decades. This would be the biggest settlement of its kind so far, if approved. Whether it's protecting athletes on the gridiron or Protecting soldiers on the battlefield, researchers are constantly looking for new ways to reduce debilitating concussions. A new material is now being tested with very positive results. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares how it was developed.
Hey there, everybody. This research team tackling a better design for anti-concussion headgear. They've developed a wearable material that may dramatically help reduce the risk of a concussion, according to a new study.
The material could be used for military headgear, lining a construction helmet, or head protection in a contact sport, according to Dr. John LaRocco, the lead author of this study at The Ohio State University College of Medicine. His team just published results from what you see here, the test results of Project Knockout. It is a combination
cornstarch from the supermarket and some aerogel insulation.
Dr. LaRocco's team baked the starch into the aerogel.
We largely made sheets of this material, essentially 2 layers with the cornstarch in the middle.
They then tested it by launching high-speed tennis balls against it. They found the combination material halted the high-speed projectiles. It actually absorbed about 70% of the impact under force in the best of conditions. It also protected against blunt force trauma compared to the aerogel alone.
The other one we did was we blasted it with a magnetic launcher to see if the magnetic projectile, a small steel pin, would go through both layers. The aerogel with the cornstarch proved a good bit more resilient.
The team from Project Knockout now looking for a company or investors that might want to help bring this product to market. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Coming up, the harrowing experience of a man who made it out alive during extreme flooding in Texas. We'll be right back after this. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Texas, where a survivor of deadly flooding recounts his experience.
Daniel Perales says he first entered the Loop 410 access road going towards Perrin Bidle on Thursday during rough weather. He says he passed other drivers who were on the side of the road, stopped in water about 6 inches to a foot high.
My vehicle is an SUV. It's lifted, it's got a 4-inch lift, and it's got high, large size tires, and I figured the water wasn't even up to their tires.
But then high water jammed him into a guardrail.
The water just came in like a tsunami.
Perales says he understands driving into water is a dangerous situation, but for some of those he passed waiting to see the water recede, they should not have lost their lives.
A new mural project in Fresno, California is putting a spotlight on the stories of undocumented youth brought to this country as children. The woman leading the effort says the purpose is to highlight the need for immigration reform.
You could think about it as a protest statement or a statement of yes, immigration rates are happening right now, but let's not forget again that who we're going after are people. And these are some of the people that we're going after, people who are represented in this mural project, right?
She hopes to eventually add a video component to deepen the experience.
Jim LeBlanc shows us the spot in his Madeira backyard where a weed nearly killed him. He was cutting honeysuckle with a chainsaw and didn't realize poison hemlock was growing there too.
So I was just trying to clear the backyard so we could see it.
Jim was in a medically induced coma. He spent 109 days in the hospital. 80 of those he was on a ventilator and had to use a feeding tube. As Jim was cutting the poison hemlock, he was unintentionally breathing the small particles of poison into his lungs.
You weren't getting oxygen, you were gasping for breath.
He had to learn to breathe, swallow, drink, talk, and walk again. There's a warning out by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources saying all parts of poison hemlock are deadly.
So glad he's here to tell his story. Coming up next, what to expect tonight with MLB star player Shohei Ohtani back on the mound to pitch for the LA Dodgers. We'll be right back. Major League Baseball's unicorn, Shohei Ohtani, will be back on the mound tonight to pitch for the Los Angeles Dodgers for the first time after signing a $700 million contract before last season. Didn't pitch last year as he was recovering from surgery. He's only expected to pitch one inning as he gets back into pitching shape. As a pitcher in the major leagues, Ohtani is 38-19 with a 3.01 ERA. And here's a live look over Oklahoma City, where at 8:30 tonight, the back and forth NBA Finals continues. The series is tied 2-2 between the Indiana Pacers and the Thunder. Neither team has won 2 in a row at this point in the series. It's a best of 3 for the championship. That's going to do it for us for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again tonight as we look at the chaos brewing inside the Democratic Party following big name resignations from the party National Committee. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tonight at 10.